Welcome to the show, everyone. Today's guests are Robert and Kay Lee Fukui. The son of a pastor, Robert grew up in California and learned the power of teamwork and fighting through improbable victories as a three-sport athlete. He went on to use those experiences as the foundation for a successful sales and marketing career, where he was directly responsible for leading global launches and generating over $150 million in sales for brands like Coca-Cola, Novartis Pharmaceutical, and Bristol-Myers Squibb, where he won multiple sales and leadership awards. Kay Lee grew up around the family feed store as the child of a business owner and entrepreneur. Working in the family business through college, she watched her dad make his business the number one priority while letting the family take a back seat. After earning her bachelor's in business, Kay Lee went to work for a bank and became the ambassador president for the Alhambra Chamber of Commerce outside of Los Angeles. When Robert and Kay Lee married, they started a marketing consulting business that soared as they helped entrepreneurs create long-term profitability and sustainability for their companies. They lived the life that said it was impossible not to bring home your work and allow home life to creep into the office. This understanding and empathy for the lack of balance small business owners experience led Robert and Kay Lee to create their Power Couples by Design program, which helps married entrepreneurs and couplepreneurs harmonize work and home life. I'm excited to have Robert and Kay Lee on the show today to share how their focus on faith in God and mission to help and serve others first has helped them build a better future for their clients and themselves in the process. And with that, Robert and Kay Lee, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Eric, for having us. We're excited.
Thanks. You make me sound pretty good.
You guys make yourself sound pretty good. It's an awesome background, and it's such an interesting blend of backgrounds when you look at like the big corporate thing that you've done, Robert, and Kay Lee, how you've experienced, entrepreneurialism and being a business owner right from a young age. So blending those things together and having done the corporate thing and for most of my career, 30 years in big corporate and startups as well. And now doing an entrepreneurial thing and understanding kind of the demands that can put on a marriage and a person, the whole, the clock never stops when you're an entrepreneur. I'm very curious to jump into this discussion. So excited to have you on the show. And I know it's gonna be a great conversation.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. So let's talk about childhood. You both grew up in California. What were your childhood influences like? What was life like growing up?
I was actually born in Hawaii. My dad was a pastor in Hawaii. He grew up, both my parents grew up in Hawaii.
Okay.
So I was actually born in Hawaii, but then when I was 9 years old, we moved to San Jose, California. My dad felt called to actually go back up to Washington State. That's where he went to Bible college. But he stopped in San Jose to visit some friends. And my mom and my sister and I, we stayed back in Hawaii until my dad kind of gave the green light, about coming out. And so he stopped in San Jose to visit some friends, and he just really felt, well, I think San Jose is where it is. And so he waved us out. We came to San Jose, and that's kind of where I grew up. And of course, I just, your childhood experiences and all that. My dad, my parents, they were it, right? And so they were the role models and all that. And it was great. Just the challenge was a lot of, my dad, kind of like as you're sharing with Kay Lee's experience, my dad was a great man of God. He was always in the Word and all that. The challenge was he was always in the Word, and sometimes the family's out here saying, "Hey, you want to play?"
Right.
And so the focus on the ministry and God's work, a lot of times, really, he was focusing on God's work and forsaking the family in a sense. He wasn't intentionally trying to do that. It was just kind of what he was used to. He grew up with a strong work ethic, growing up in a plantation, so work. And then, of course, even in Bible school and seminary, a lot of times they're talking about how much you have to sacrifice your personal life for the sake of the ministry. So literally it's kind of ingrained in you. So I don't fault him, and just like Kay Lee's dad, that's just what they knew.
Right.
And so that's the experience was, hey, the ministry is great, but not as great maybe as family. And so when I took that, I remember that's one of the things I said to myself growing up was, I don't want to be in ministry. I don't want to be a pastor. And so that's kind of why I went kind of the business route. But kind of full circle, seems like some of the things we do now is very pastoral.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, when you think about it, as I'm sitting here listening to your story, I mean, Christ's call to all of his disciples was, follow me, right? Leave your family, leave what you're doing, follow me. I didn't really consider it in terms of, when you bring that to kind of modern day, when you think about a pastor, and I'm Roman Catholic, and so priests, basically they decide their bride will be the church, right, in Christ,
Yeah.
and so they take a vow of celibacy. They're not going to get married, and so it's this calling to serve the Lord that I hadn't considered really what that calling looks like for a pastor's family, and potentially, right, I've got some friends that were PKs, right, pastors' kids.
Yeah.
And they were some of the rowdiest kids out there. They were wild, and I think part of it maybe was because, and I'd be curious your take is, the dad or the mom and dad are focused on the flock. And so the kids are like, I got some freedom here, right? To go a little off the rails. So I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah. I mean,
PK.
there's absolutely. There's a lot of that. And, I kind of did the same thing. I think there's a lot of expectations on pastors and the whole family. And so as a kid, you're only 8, 9 years old. There's so much expectation on you, and the expectation is perfection, essentially. And so when I got into my teenage years, you just want to spread your wings a little bit. And, that's why I just went, hey, let's go party. Let's see what this other side's about. And it just more the freedom aspect. I want that freedom, so to speak. And so, and then also, again, like I was saying, is, my dad's so focused over here is, well, I'm going to go over here, right? Yeah. And so there's a little bit of rebellion goes into play, because basically it's almost like the ministry is the mistress, just like the business can be the mistress. And so kids are just going to act out. They want attention. They want attention from somebody. And if it's not the parents, if not your dad, then it's going to be somebody or something else. Right. And so I absolutely believe, as you're kind of alluding to, a lot of the rebellious streak in PKs are a lot around that. Too high expectations, the pressure, and then also just we're not being paid attention to.
Yeah. Do you think there's any resentment that gets built in there? Like, I'm not getting paid attention to, so I'm going to show you, and I'm going to get some attention here. You may not like it, but I'm going to get it.
Oh, absolutely. I believe we talk about the same thing. The same thing is that we all have an emotional tank, and we want to fill it up with one, bad or good. we're going to fill it up. And so whether it's, negative emotions or attention or positive ones, we're just going to fill up. So if we're not getting the positive ones, then we're going to fill it up with all the negative ones. Yeah. And so, a lot of truth to that.
For sure. I'm curious, I have to ask about the island. So growing up in Hawaii, what island did you grow up on? And how old were you when you moved? What are your kind of memories of that?
Yeah, so I was born in the Big Island of Hawaii, and then we also lived in Oahu and Maui, as my dad was bumping around different churches around there. I was 9 years old when we moved, so I didn't have a whole lot of early childhood memories other than I remember when I swam in Maui, just swam at the beach. And then I remember we went up to, it does snow in Hawaii.
Which is amazing.
People don't realize that.
Yeah.
So in the Big Island, Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa get snow. And so Mauna Kea, the observatory is up there. And so I remember my parents trucking me up there with the youth group and all that up to Mauna Kea in the snow. And I just remember thinking, what the heck are we doing up here? It's cold. Right. So I had little childhood memories here and there, church camps and that kind of stuff. A lot of stuff was really revolving around church. When we were traveling the island, it's usually because we had a missionary that was staying with us, and so we'd show them around. Definitely some good memories. Didn't have a whole lot because I was 9 years old when we left. But then, as adults, we've gone back and kind of revisited our roots. And it was interesting. We were back in Maui several years ago for my nephew's wedding, and decided to, hey, let's stop at the old church where my dad pastored in Kahului. And I noticed when we drove by, there's the original sanctuary, but where the parsonage was, where we lived next door, the parsonage wasn't there anymore. There's this 2-story building. It looked like a classroom. So I thought, oh, maybe they built on a school and Sunday school, or maybe they have a private school there now. So we stopped in there, and I said, hey, I used to live here. Like I went to the office. I said, no, I literally lived here. And then,
Wow.
and they said, oh, the executive director is going to want to meet you. So she goes in the back and brings her out. This lady Maud comes walking out, and she just walks right out, and she looks at me and she says, I remember you.
No way.
And I'm like, what do you mean you remember me? I was like, who do you think I am?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't been back there for, we're looking at the time was 45 years or so or more.
Man.
And so she's like, no, I went to church here when your dad was pastoring here. And I was like,
Amazing.
really, in the 70s?
You haven't changed any.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's
so
wild.
she's like, I remember you when you were a little kid and all that. You had your little red boots and all that stuff. And so here she was. She had obviously stayed with the church. And now this building, what I thought was the Sunday school building, was actually a homeless shelter.
Mm.
And I said, oh, and so actually the church where it is, that's not the church anymore. The church had grown so much, they bought a property on the other side of town. It's now kind of a mega church thing. And so what the original church is a homeless shelter and disaster relief center. And so I said, well, that's interesting. I said, I remember growing up, my mom would always bring in a homeless person every now and then.
Mm.
And I said, my first memory of her doing that was actually here. And so there's this guy that was working across the street in the cannery, and he was probably trying to save money, didn't want to spend any hotel and all that. So he just slept on the side of the church. And I remember one morning my mom saw him and said, hey, just come inside. And so he just stayed with us until he left.
Wow.
And then I remember him after we moved to San Jose, years later, of course. I remember the guy had researched and searched him down and wrote a letter to my parents and saying, hey, I'm in, I think, Washington or something like that. I'm good. I've got a family and, great. I just remember, you taking me in and just really appreciate that, and just wrote
That's
this letter.
awesome.
So Maud, the executive director, is like tearing up. It's like, oh my gosh, like your mom started something here. Like I got to tell the board and all that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, so that was fun. So that was, like I said, didn't have a whole lot of memories because I was young there. But then when we revisit some things, it was really cool to revisit the past. And in fact, Maud gave me this piece of brick, which is part of the foundation of the original parsonage that they built over.
Oh man. How awesome is that? So cool. What a great legacy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Super cool story too. So when you go to San Jose, was that a big culture shock? It had to be a climate shock. Kind of chilly in San Jose, isn't it? It's kind of Northern California,
It got
right?
cool. Yeah, it gets cooler when summers are nice and all that. And it was culture shock. It was more more Caucasians and all that. And but the biggest shock for me was the allergies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we don't have really the change of seasons in Hawaii, so we
Yeah.
don't have those allergy seasons. And so I remember I just got hit hard. But so that was getting used to. But yeah, their culture was definitely different. And I remember when we first moved there, and then someone asked me, "Oh, where'd you move from? And where are you from?" And I said, "Hawaii." And he goes, "Oh, how long have you been in the United States?" And I'm like, and this is an adult. I
Yeah.
wasn't a kid; I was like an adult.
Right.
I got confused. I was like, I thought Hawaii was part of the United States. And so I remember going home and I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, are we not American?
Oh man, that's amazing. Jeez. Hawaii became a state in the 50s or
60? Yes,
six.
I think 60.
Yeah.
1960. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it's
It's been around for a while.
It's been around for a while. Yeah. The news would have got out, right? All right, cool. But so let's catch Kay Lee up on her story then at this point. So talk a bit about what it was like growing up on a dairy farm. What part of the country was the farm, and or no, a feed store, right?
Yeah, it was a feed store. So we were in California. I'm a California girl, lived here all my life. Love it here. And
Southern California.
Southern California, correct. And my dad had a cattle ranch, so I grew up riding horses. I loved it. That was like some of my best childhood memories was riding. And I think I said it already, third generation entrepreneur. And at a young age, well, college, my dad's like, "You're going to come to work here." I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you're coming to work." And so met a lot of great people, fabulous clientele that would come in. You get to know their families, their pets, their whole life history. But some of the challenges were, having a brick and mortar. My dad worked 6 days a week. Holidays. I mean, we were off on the major ones like Christmas and Easter, but a wedding would come by, family event would come. I would be the ones. I'm all about the fun, but I'm the one left behind to work while everybody else goes and has fun at all these events that are going on.
Yeah.
And so that was challenging. Childhood too, as Robert was saying earlier, the business became the mistress because I don't know to this day if my dad made it to my high school graduation.
Oh, really?
I think he was working. And, a lot of times kids just want their dad to be home and play with them and just kind of hang out. And it's challenging because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, and we see this in our clients ourselves, is that the go-to is just put more work in, put more hours in. So that's supposed to solve all issues if you need more income.
Yes.
So, and plus there was 4 kids. So I think my dad liked to kind of escape and get away from home because there was a lot going on.
A lot at home.
4 strong old children. So.
Yeah. So feed store. So this is were your customers like ranchers or was it just like anybody with pets and needed dog food and stuff like that?
Ranchers, farmers, people that had pets. Back then there was a lot more people had horses, chickens, which is a big, huge thing again. But yeah, and dogs and cats and stuff.
Yeah,
like
Southern California. I have aunts. I have some branch of our family. So my mother's sister, one of my aunts, moved out there right after World War II, and put in roots, and so they got generations now of family there, and it was we would visit, and it was like rough country. It was like the West. You would kind of I have a friend that grew up out there as well, and grew up. He's probably born in I would say the late 50s, early 60s. And he's like, man, we used to ride dirt bikes. And he grew up in kind of the Southern California, kind of outside Los Angeles, Orange County. And he's like, we would ride dirt bikes and hunt rabbits with our 22 rifles, and just as kids riding around with rifles on our back on our dirt bikes and shooting rabbits. And he goes, no one even looked twice at us. It was just like Americana. We were outside all the time, beautiful weather and just beautiful countryside and land and lots of land. And you just be a kid. And he's like, it's not that way anymore. It's unfortunate. He's like, it's just too many people out there. It's so crowded. And obviously culturally it's changed quite a bit in terms of what's allowed, not allowed. But he's like, yeah, it was a different California that I grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s than now.
But, that's definitely the case.
Yeah. Okay. So with that backdrop of you're seeing kind of what it's like to your dad's having to work so much and not around for some of the events and things, and you're going to go to college, but he lets you know you're going to come back to work here. Is that, and so do you have any other thought? I know in part of the intro, you become the ambassador or president to a chamber of commerce, which for those that are listening, so that area is Alhambra. I looked it up, right? So it's like outside of Los Angeles, small suburb. It sounded like maybe 80,000 population. Talk about that. Like, where did that come from, and what was your mindset around? I'm working in the family feed store, and what that meant.
So at that point, I finished school, got my business degree, met Robert years later, and ended up moving to Pasadena because that's where he was living. And then one of a client of ours was struggling and wanted some marketing help. So Robert said he'd be glad to help them. This was early on when we started our business. And they were members of the chamber, but they never used it. And so Robert's like, well, why not? And they had all these reasons.
Typical,
and so we thought, oh, let's going to give it a try. You know what I mean? And it can't hurt. And so we ended up joining. Or we ended up using their membership as a guest. And then after that, we did end up joining. Robert ended up getting on the board. They're like, oh, we think we need you to join our board. And then they had a group of ambassadors that would help be like liaison between the chamber and the business owners, because we'd like to connect people. We love building relationships. And so they needed someone to be president for that. So I said, sure, I'd love to do that. I'd love to connect people and help as much as we can. So that's kind of how that came about.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you're doing so at this point now you're married. You've got sounds like a marketing or consulting business that you and Robert are running together. I'm curious, Robert, on your side, I know part of the intro was you were a sporty kid, played 3 sports, and, athletics and sports are a great teacher, I think, for goal setting and doing hard things and accomplishing goals and overcoming odds and all those great themes and lessons that can come out of that. And you focus on, okay, Dad was a pastor. I'm going to go big company. And so you went, some of those brands that you work for, some of the, they're Americana brands, right? Coca-Cola and Bristol-Myers Squibb. So talk a bit about that, what that was like for you and what your mindset was going into big corporate sales and marketing and leaving college and focusing on that.
Yeah. Like I said, I was trying to figure out a way to get as far away from the ministry as possible. So I figured business degree would be that. But no, I enjoyed business. Especially when I took my first marketing class, I really enjoyed that. And so I thought, okay, let me focus on that area. So my focus in my business degree was on marketing. And then I did an internship with Coca-Cola this summer before I graduated. And so they actually basically offered me a job. from that internship, long story short. And so here I am, just kind of, you grew up with the strong work ethic. My dad was definitely passed that down to me. But we talk a lot about how I talk about my dad was so focused on the ministry because of the strong work ethic and doing this thing, and it got passed down to me. We kind of grew up in society as we get measured by what we do and the accomplishments we have, not so much about who we are and our relationships, kind of leading to relationship piece. But so, just like anybody else, whether you're in sports, you want to do well.
Yep.
Right? When you're in school, your parents definitely want you to do well. You may not want to do well, but your parents want you to do well. And so you're measured on that, right? Yeah. And then, of course, when you're thinking about your major, you want to do something that hopefully makes some money and you want to excel. And then, of course, once you get into your career, you want to excel in that. And so every phase of my career and school and sports and all that, I was excelled. And so definitely when I got into Coca-Cola, this is amazing, with a major brand. The company just launched Powerade the year before. Okay. And the World Cup was in the US. So that'll date me because that's the last time
that would have been after the Coke Classic debacle, like the new.
That was after that. Yes, that was after that. So I wasn't part of that deal, but I was part of the launching Powerade, or at least in the infancy stage, and then of course the World Cup was around. So that was '94.
Did you go to a lot of soccer games?
Yeah. So I was working for the local Coca-Cola baller in the Bay Area. So Stanford University was one of the sites, and so I think I hit every game.
Nice.
A lot of it because I had to work too with the event marketing and stuff like that. So, but it was my first World Cup experience, and I was like, wow, this is pretty dynamic. I mean, I've seen soccer games in the U.S., but this is on a different level. I was like, oh, now I see why people like this. So I was really enjoying the path, the career, and then a few years after starting with Coke, I really want to get in the pharmaceutical industry because, well, one, they made more money. And they probably didn't have to work as hard as Coke. We had working 12-hour days. I was just kind of expected. So while it was good, it was also a grind. And so I went to the pharmaceutical industry a few years after that. And so I was just, I was doing great. My career was budding, make more money. We had just moved down to, I was in the Bay Area, but a few years after we got married, we had moved down to Pasadena. And so we're, both our careers are growing. Just bought a new house, got a new puppy and all that. And so everything's going good. You're checking all the boxes as far as your career path and your life and all that. And then about 23 years ago.
This was his previous wife.
Yeah, this is so about 23 years ago, right before Christmas, we're talking about Christmas, our plans for the week because we're taking the week off, and literally 10 minutes from here, my wife gets in a car accident. My first wife got in a car accident and died at the scene.
Oh my gosh!
And so, yeah,
Tragedy.
just,
My goodness.
and so, you talk about just your life just shifting, just turning upside down all at once.
Yeah.
And so, it went from thinking about the future, the near future, and also, we had plans for the future as well, 20, 30 years from now, and talking about those things. But all those things are mute points, right? And all the accomplishments and the sales, your goals and all that just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And so, here I am just trying to process everything. And then things start going in your head, like, maybe I should have given that one last kiss, or a little bit of a longer hug, or maybe I shouldn't postpone date night because, we're going to take the week off. So just the rationalization of those things. And so what I'm looking at is like, man, you start missing these moments. Like the things that flash back aren't about accomplishments anymore.
Right.
It's actually missing those moments. And then the next day, get a knock on the door, and I open the door, and there's my family and my friends from San Jose. They drove down. And I remember the first time I was kind of sharing the story publicly, I was like, man, that's interesting. The door frame really was a picture of what success looked like. We define success by the things we accomplish and what we do. But in that picture, in that moment, that was success. I got my family, of course, but then my friends, it was interesting. It was friends with different phases of my life, from fourth grade, high school, college, and Coca-Cola. I mean, they're all there. And I was like, wow, that's success. And so, that year, I was really want to make sure I focus on relationships. You're holding on to everything now at that point. Once a month, I drive up to San Jose to see my parents because, you never know. They're getting up there in age. To, of course, see the rest of my family and friends, and then even reconnected with some friends down here that went to church camp with when I was a kid.
Wow.
And actually, that's how I met my first wife, was at church camp. I was 12 years old. She was 10.
Yeah.
And so, I was really investing in relationships, of course, at that time. And it just really, and then at the end of the year, I actually won best performers in sales. And so,
Amazing.
Here's my other colleagues are just like almost bragging about not taking their time off, not taking vacations, right? I'm too busy. And I was like, man, they pay you to take vacation. I'm like, that's crazy not to take vacation. They're paying you to go take off, right? And so I'm using my vacation time. And of course, I was, when I worked hard, but I wasn't like going to kill myself either. Yeah. And definitely not at the expense of relationships. I've already lost one. I wasn't going to do that again. I wasn't going to miss the moments.
Right.
And so what it showed me was, number one, what does success look like? It's the depth and breadth of your relationships, number one. You don't have to strive to be successful. You can thrive in the midst of investing into relationships. You can still succeed professionally. You get the money and all that. But it kind of like, people have it backwards these days because the way we're taught is just go, strive, hustle and grind, right? The hustle and grind mentality.
Yeah.
And so that was the part of the starting point for me of looking at life and career and success a little bit differently, and kind of saying, let's focus, let's go all in on a relationship. We can still succeed professionally if we prioritize relationships, but if you prioritize your success, your profession, and all that, just like we saw growing up, you're gonna lose the relationship at some level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true that and I'm curious, I don't know if you've traveled overseas and if you see the same perspective overseas, or if it's more of an American kind of mindset, the hustle grind, and the idea that make your money, like do the financial and the business success now, and then you can enjoy the relationships or build relationships or take time and travel and do all that. But you really got to build all this kind of financial wealth, and then the financial or the business success, that's the priority. And if you've got it reversed, well, you're just either lazy or soft, or, and it is, I'm curious, do you see that in other cultures or other places as well, or more here?
In Asian cultures, you see that. And I think that's where America kind of got it from.
Yeah.
We go to Europe. I mean, we're going to Italy next week. And we've both been there before. And It's definitely different. It's more family first.
Yeah.
Definitely they take the time off. In fact, even, between the siesta time is very popular. Still kind of do that at some level. And they definitely take their times off and all that kind of stuff. For, to me, in that 60s, 70s, it's really when a lot of the big executives went overseas, especially to Japan, to see why they're so successful, and they saw the hustle and grind mentality.
Yeah.
Since they're working almost like 24/7. And that's the American executives really thought that was the secret to success.
Right.
And so they kind of brought that really back. And I think you saw that acceleration of hustle and grind in the 70s because of trying to keep up with Japan and some of the other countries that were outdoing this.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love about your story there, Robert, is, while you had this eye-opening, kind of jarring, shocking, devastating moment that really kind of flipped your view on what was important. And so it became relationships. I'm going to take the time. I'm going to see my family. I'm going to see my friends. And at the same time, you were winning sales awards. So whether it was, okay, I'm going to take the time, so I'm just going to be more focused and disciplined while I'm working so that I can go. So it wasn't like, oh, all of a sudden you became this kind of slacker, slash underperformer. You're performing at the highest level while still being prioritized around family and friends and relationship and connection. So you can do both without, and correct me, but without burning the candle at both ends and the middle to where it's like, well, I don't have any time to sleep, right? Because I'm either driving to San Jose or working so you found a way to balance that out.
And what was interesting, though, as I was trying to transition to consulting work, from the corporate environment, I was starting to burn the candle at both ends. And it was because I remember there was a period where, I'd ask, I run into a friend, hey, how you doing? And the number one response was, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And they just tell you all the stuff that they're doing, they're just busy. And so I started thinking, like, oh, maybe I'm not doing enough.
Right.
Maybe I'm not being successful because I'm not busy. And so then I started responding the same way when people ask me how I'm doing. I say, oh, I'm busy. I felt like I had to say that. Right. And then, of course, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start filling up your calendar with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm like working till 2 a.m. Of course, I had my day job. And so I had to do the consulting work on the side. So you can't quite get away from that. But still, I was working like till 2 a.m. And then, by the time Friday night hits, and especially Saturday, I'm just spent. And so, I had the weekend off, but with Kay Lee, but I'm just not present.
Yeah.
My mind is elsewhere. Like, I'm like looking at the couch going, man, that looks good.
He wakes up, takes the dog out, comes back, sits down on the couch, and that's it. He's like sleeping again.
That was Saturday morning.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is getting crazy. Like, this isn't God's best. And I remember I was sitting right there at his desk, and it was almost 2 a.m. And I was like, I know I have to put in work, after hours, but I'm like, does it have to be this late? I'm like, I don't think this is your best, that even in transition, that I should be that wiped out. Because Kay Lee was being very gracious at the time. She said, I know it's just a season. Once we get, transition to doing the consulting work full time, then she'll have her husband back. Because
I actually like spending time with him. Right. Believe it or not. Right. I missed him.
But I felt, no, that's not fair. I don't think that's right. So basically I just said, you know what, instead of 2 a.m., I said, how about if I just at least get to bed by 11? And so that's 3 hours a night, 15 hours a week.
That's a lot of sleep.
2 nights of sleep, right? 2 nights
that
extra
I wasn't
sleep.
getting before.
Yeah.
And so basically what that did would force me to really look at the business activities I was doing and determine what's productive versus just busy work.
Yeah.
A lot of the busy work is just shifting folders around and whatever. Yeah. It's just a lot of stuff, right? Answering emails. Some things aren't important. There's some things I don't have to do right now, but I'm doing it right now. There's things that are just filling up my plate. And so it really, really forced me to figure out how to be more productive in the time I had and not just fill it up. Because I didn't have that boundary of time, I just went.
Yeah.
Right. So really the boundary, when I created that first boundary of time, that forced me to do work better, not smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
right? And so that was kind of the first entree to that. And then started noticing our clients were feeling the same pressure. Their life was out of balance. They're just spinning their wheels. They're just working and working and working. And I was like, oh, wait a second, time out here.
Yeah.
Before we get to the marketing issue, let's work some of these other issues. We need to work like boundaries and making sure you're present with your family. And then let's see how we work the business a little bit smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah, boundaries was huge. Figure out what is the priorities and what do we need to get done and what can we let go of.
I'm curious, what was the driving factor in leaving the corporate role that you had, the sales job you had? Obviously, a lot of success, good income. You're experiencing some cool stuff. You mentioned World Cup, and I'm sure after World Cup, there was the next sporting event that was coming behind it. What was okay, this is not my destiny to stay on this track forever. I'm going to leave and go do my own thing. What was the driver there? Was it a goal for time freedom? Was it like I want to make more money but spend less time? I mean, I'm just kind of curious. What was the mentality around the move?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, growing up in a pastor's house, and my dad just said, go to school, get a job, and, stay out of debt. So
Yeah.
that was his words of wisdom. That was his life lesson for me.
Yeah.
And so I never thought about having a business. That was not on my radar. It was really more her.
I always saw him. I told him years ago when we first met, I said, I see you having your own business. And he's like, oh, no, 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 definitely no, because I'm around entrepreneurs. So I just think most people have their own business.
Right. Sure.
And he's like, no, that's just too risky for me.
Yeah,
He's
pretty
like,
much.
no, I want to stay where, I got all the bennies and,
Yeah.
you know, work 8 to 5, have all the holidays off. And
There's an appeal there, right? I mean, it's not a bad gig.
have the
Yeah.
car.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad gig at all, but when I got to my like early mid 40s, I did start thinking about, start thinking longer term, like, okay, am I supposed to just keep climbing up the corporate ladder,
Yep.
or is it something else? And so that's when I kind of entertained the idea of a business. And also at the time, our church and our pastor was really talking a lot about, your role and your impact in the marketplace. And, what are you supposed to be doing to impact the marketplace for the kingdom of God? And so I'm like, okay, well, what is it? Is it here in the corporate environment? I mean, I did start a Bible study in Bristol-Myers. And so before our sales meeting, because we're all out in the field and our office was at home. So weren't around each other all the time until we had our quarterly sales meetings or in our yearly national meetings. So I actually started like a little Bible study right before we started the morning before we started the first session. But anyways, I just started thinking, well, maybe it would be a business. And so I just started consulting on the side. I first started helping a couple friends with their business, just pro bono. And I'm like, oh, I like this. And wasn't so much just the work itself. Well, I mean, the work itself was great, but also the impact it had on their lives.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with a small business, family business, it means more, especially to the owner,
Yeah.
right? In corporate environment, it's all about the shareholders. In the small business, you're dealing with the person,
Yes.
right? And the impact on them financially, but also on their family. And of course, you got the employees, right?
Yeah.
And so you really saw the greater impact. I mean, at least I saw the impact just directly right in front of me, which you don't get to really see and experience so much in a corporate environment. And so I'm like, oh, I really enjoy this. And so I then I started charging, and then it just kind of started to grow.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, is this, I think this is it. At first I thought I would do consulting on the side,
Yeah.
eventually find a business that I want to start. I was thinking of it as paid market research. I would
Yeah.
help all these different businesses in different industries, and then, maybe I'll find something.
Yeah.
But I found out that I really enjoyed the process of consulting and coaching. And there's periods, as we're talking about, that you get to know the business owners, and the personal life starts to come out.
Yeah.
And you start to almost like, sometimes I'm thinking, am I a consultant or am I a pastor?
Exactly. Or a counselor or coach.
Exactly. And so that's where, that pastoral part comes around. It's like, yeah, I may not be at the pulpit, but I feel sometimes we're pastoring our clients in a lot of ways. And so, anyways, that's kind of how it started. And I was like, okay, let's go all in and just kind of create a plan and a path to be able to finally leave the corporate job and just do consulting full time.
Right on. Okay. And so your coaching and consulting really, and helping clients from your background, right? Which is sales and marketing. How to help you sell more, do better marketing. You're using the skills and the gifts, all the learnings that you've taken from that corporate environment, which is to me, it's one of the most incredible things about being in big corporations is that, especially when you're a performer, is you get invested in, right? So you're getting a lot of training and development typically. Yeah. And so you're coaching and and consulting with companies on how to do better at driving sales. And in the process, you're seeing patterns of these owner managed businesses and where they've got struggle with balancing time, work bleeding over into home leaking into work, the stress it causes on the couple, which the term I used was from some of your bio, couplepreneur. I've never heard that term before, but obviously it says what it is, right? A married couple they're in business together and entrepreneurs, but the stress on the marriage. So talk about like that transition from, there's a need here that is maybe you didn't anticipate. It was, I'm going to help them from a business side, but now I'm really almost helping them with their relationship as it relates to the business side. So talk about that.
Yeah. One of the aspects of marketing I really enjoyed was market research. I always have my market research antenna up. And so, as I said, as you're helping them with the business, eventually the personal side starts to come out, the personal life comes out. And even before that, they would hire me for marketing help. But as I started to look into the business more, their P&Ls, operation, what they're doing and all that, I really saw a pattern with these small family businesses was they were just working way too hard, or were just working harder than they needed to. They didn't have any formal training in business, so they're just learning as they go. And because of that, you just create one inefficiency on another, just compounds itself. And so instead of figuring out how to do it smarter, how to get better outcomes, how to get better ROI on their marketing and figuring that out, they just spend more time in. Just go get more leads, yeah. Do more work, do some more marketing, just work longer hours to get the orders fulfilled, all that kind of stuff, as opposed to taking a step back and say, wait a second, how do we just do this better?
Yeah, right.
And so that's what I found. And then, of course, the personal life started coming out and how it's affecting home, their marriage, and all that. And then at first, because we went to counseling for 2 years before we even got married. And that's a whole story in itself.
Yeah, that's a little different.
So yes. So I would start to just give the tools that helped us. I was talking to them, and so next thing I know, I'm getting marriage advice and all that stuff. And then I'm like, wait, time out. What's going on here? Yeah. Like, this is a thing. And so I was like, okay, yeah, they need some marriage help, but it's really the inefficiencies in the business and them covering up the inefficiencies of just putting more time in is really impacting home, which is creating the conflict. Because just like growing up, kids are acting up because they don't get to see dad or mom. Mom or your wife or your husband is acting up because you're not paying attention. Even if they're working together, because all they're doing is about work, they don't have that personal time, that connection time, that intimacy time. And so that's when I looked at Kay Lee and I said, hey, there's a thing going on. There seems to be an elephant in the room that no one's trying to fix, and that there's a lack of balance in our life. The expectation is you got to put everything in the business, and until that's fixed, your personal life is going to suffer. Yeah, that's the expectation. Yeah. Right? You hear that, right?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of our clients say, "Oh, we need more sales. We need more sales. We need more sales." But then we go on and look, and there's like no margin.
Yeah.
And so
no capacity.
Yeah. And so if you're already in the negative or you don't have the capacity, bringing on more clients is not going to be the answer at all. Yeah. It's just really going to make things worse.
Yeah. You'll sell yourself right out of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We have the capacity issues. Even just recently, a client was like, we need to ramp up our social media. And I said, okay, you already said you're working till midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, how about we focus on getting help?
Yes.
Because they have the money to hire, but they haven't been focused on money because they're so busy. I'm like, you need help. Right? We don't need more sales. We do. So anyways, it just got to that. Yeah, we started looking at this and like, wait a second. There's an issue here. Let's fix this thing. There's some business issues we need to fix. But in the meantime, you gotta make sure you have established some boundaries between work and home. And when you're home, you got to make sure you're present. So which means, let's start with the basics of boundaries, is no phones after a certain period of time, no phones at the dinner table, no phones when you're supposed to be hanging out with your kids, or you're supposed to be on a date night. That's like, right, turn off those notifications, this, that, and the other thing. So even in the midst of being busy and having to work a lot of hours, I said, you still are going to be home at some point.
Yeah.
So how about we make sure you're present when that moment, when you're there, and then let's all, while we're working, fixing the business issues to make it a little bit more efficient, more productive, have better margins, and you have the capacity, and you build capacity to be able to handle more business by not you working more, but being able to delegate more, because now you have the profit margins to be able to hire the right people, bring in the additional software, equipment that'll make things more productive, that sort of thing. So there's a process that we work through, but especially, regardless of how busy you are home at some point. So let's make it count. Let's make it count.
Because some people are like, oh, I'm just too busy. I'm like, you're too busy to give your family member 5 minutes of your present time. I mean, I myself, there's so many things I waste my time on. I mean, I'm not like productive
Right.
all day. What do they say? Like, you're only productive 2 hours out of a whole day
2.5 hours
at work. So
Right. Yeah. I believe that. All right. So then are you then establishing, this is the guidelines that each of your clients will follow in terms of like, okay, knowing each client's unique, here's how you're going to create these boundaries to where you're going to get in the office at this time, or you're going to be home by this time. And then when you're home, here's the strategies. Like you mentioned, phones get put away, what other little takeaways or things do you emphasize for your clients to help them create those boundaries and that balance that they're lacking?
well, I think we sit down and we talk with them first about what is important to them.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Because it could be different for each couple, each individual. I mean, like for us in the morning, we wake up, we pray together, we have our own time, and we try and do that first thing in the morning because the day gets so busy. And then if it doesn't happen then, a lot of times it doesn't happen. And just praying together, giving each other an encouraging word and a blessing can go a long ways for your day, setting it up in a positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we help them establish, okay, when it comes to work-life balance, number one is, what's your priorities? Which, for a lot of us, our faith and our family, and it's our business. So practically, how do you live it out? And so the first thing you got to do is create boundaries or protected space and time for that. Yep. And so for me and for us, if it doesn't happen first thing in the morning, it's probably not going to happen, because once you get going, you get busy.
Yep.
There's too much going in your head, your phone, everything, emails, whatever, calls, whatever, right? Yep. And so you got to give that first thing in the morning. That's when you can give your best time anyway. Number one, our devotion to God and in each other. And for our, especially for our clients that are Christians or faith-driven, I said, hey, there's data out there that says for couples that actively pray daily together, the divorce rate is less than 1%. And yet only about 8%, according to Barna Research, only about 8% of Christian couples actually pray daily together, outside the dinner table. And the stats aren't much different for ministry couples.
Really?
In fact, I remember seeing a stat and I'm thinking, I don't remember my parents praying together. Outside of the dinner table, I don't remember seeing them pray daily together, just sitting down and praying over each other and speaking blessings of each other. Yeah. And so I'm like, interesting. And then whenever we bring this up to some couples, even if they're not clients, but just bring this up, they have all these excuses of why they can't. We're on different schedules. He works before me, or this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like,
too busy.
Mm-hmm. It's not like we're asking for 2 hours of the day. I mean, we're literally talking minutes, right? And I'm like, you don't have 5-10 minutes in the day. I guarantee you're wasting more than 5-10 minutes just on your phone, right? And so you're telling me you can't give 5 to 10. So it's interesting that to have better balance in life, to be able to focus on their priorities, it really doesn't take much time. It just takes more intention. Mm-hmm. So that's, again, what Kay Lee is saying. What's important to you? What are your priorities? Let's put those things in the calendar first. And then there's still plenty of time to do the business and every other volunteer work and all the other stuff. But we got to make sure we take care of first things first.
Yeah.
So once we do that, then it's just creating new habits and routines, really is all it is.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to make sure the time we're spending in the day is very efficient. It's focused on priorities and that. So we always go, what's important? How do we start to put that in the calendars first?
Yeah.
And then in the business, the same thing. It's as a business owner, what are your priorities? What's the work that you should be doing that only you can do? That's kind of your zone of genius that you're great at, and it gives you life. Yeah. And then the other stuff, what can be delegated, what can be automated, what can be eliminated out of your schedule.
Yep, yeah.
And so just working through that process. So that's the basic kind of, I guess, framework in which we'll take them through.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's such a powerful thing, the act of praying with your spouse in the morning. My wife and I we picked up that habit probably, I don't know, maybe or probably it coincided with me starting my coaching and consulting business, right? So probably 4 years ago, started doing that in the morning with more time in the morning and a breakfast together. So exercise first and then have breakfast and prayer time together. And then the day starts, and we're not perfect with it. So I know like the days when we miss, it just something's typically off, or you find more stresses, or you get more wound up about different things.
Your temper gets a little shorter.
Yeah, it's such a great way to start the day. And for us, it just creates that baseline of like, okay, this is what's important. It just creates a bit of peace and a bit of perspective around all the things that you're going to go now and tackle and do in the business day, because it gives us this reminder that the business activities, and you said it before, Robert, when you said your friends showed up in your door and they were framed in this whole notion of this is success. We tend to think of success as business accomplishments. But when you pray to start the day, it reminds you that we're playing for another place, right? We're playing for another world. This is a world that we're transitioning through, but it's not the end state. And there's a bigger purpose to what we're doing. And if we're forgetting that, or if we're putting that off till like, oh, I'll worry about my faith till Sunday, or I'll deal with, we think about and pray and we do that stuff on Sunday and we compartmentalize it. Man, you've missed this opportunity to recognize, how can I share the faith that I have and the gift that it is for me and the peace that it gives and the blessing that it is with others in a daily walk, right? Whether it's the people you meet at the gas station or the Starbucks or wherever, all these people you bump into all throughout the day, you have this opportunity to be a little bit of, shine the light of God on them. And yet we often just avoid all that, right? We're just trying to navigate as quickly as we can so we can get back to the grind. And it's such a missed opportunity, And praying in the morning just really sets the tempo.
You hit a great point too, because in my prayer time, it's always asking for wisdom and discernment. And so the discernment piece, it's like throughout the day, how can be cognizant of what may be the leading or direction that God wants. And so even sometimes in a potential business conversation or meeting, there's been times where all of a sudden I'm like, I don't think this is about business today. Because the person will start sharing about other stuff, right? Sometimes there's some kind of, something's going on with them. They're off. They're not feeling just right. And then I'll just stop for the moment and go, how you doing? I just remember this one time I said, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And he just gave me the, pat answer and just, kind of brushed it off. And I said, no, how are you really doing?
Yeah.
And then it caught him. He got it. He's like, then all of a sudden he started divulging some things. And I just remember, asked him, can I pray for you?
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a believer or not, but he said yes.
Yeah.
And it just meant so much. It just meant so much. And we didn't talk about business that meeting. I mean, business got done later, but at the moment it was just about him. And it meant so much to him. I think that's why business got done later, was because it was someone he felt he could trust me. And
he felt like you cared.
Yeah, he saw me not just as a consultant anymore. It was something different. And so it just, it's just so many ways, right? There's so many things you can pull out of it that, business will get taken care of at some point. But I don't need to be doing it right now if I don't think that's the time to do it. And that's why I pray for discernment, because we can't always have our business hat on, because at the end of the day, you say that's not the most important thing anyway. It's really about the people. It's about the relationships. And so I feel part of our success is because we're relationship first with each other, but then even clients, potential clients or friends or whatever, it's just like, no, how you doing? Right.
Yeah.
And I think we do miss those opportunities that you're saying, because we're so busy, especially when we get in business mode. We're just sticking to our agenda and all that. And we miss those opportunities in the moments to just, even if you don't pray for them, but just to hey, just be a friend.
Check in with them. Tell them that they're important, that they're seen and you hear them and you care.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked at EY earlier in my career, and one of my great mentors, a gentleman named Larry Haynes, just a great, great human being. And this guy was loved across the firm by his clients because he was so human, right? He was just so real. And we sold a lot of business together. And, I was young and, aggressive business guy, right? Wanting to get out, sell lots of stuff, win awards, go on trips. And so I'd have these meetings and we'd get them set up, and I'd have Larry coming with me, and he would be notoriously late because he's one of these guys. He hated to say goodbye to people. He hated to end the conversation. So he'd always kind of be late throughout the day. You need to try to set up meetings earlier, the better. Because if you were first on the schedule, if you were the mid-afternoon meeting, chances are he was behind by then. But he would show up to meetings, and I would have all the deck prepared, and this is the talking points. This is how we're going to open. This is what we're doing in the middle. This is how we're going to close. And he would cast it all aside. Like, he'd get in there and he would sit down with these, didn't matter, prospective client, someone we might have just met, or someone that we were doing some additional business with. He would say it just so much about, tell me how you're doing. He would say those things like, how are you? And people would get thrown off by it, especially when it was a prospective sales call. They're like, what are you talking? And they would just jump into business stuff. And he would be like, well, help me understand you. Like, what's really important to you? And he would strip these folks down to where they're like, I don't know what this guy's all about, but I want to work with him because he cares, right? And he would just sell based on that. I care about you. And it was true. It wasn't a sales thing. He genuinely cared. Yeah. And he would go right to the human level, right to that human layer. And I would, at first, my mind would get blown, like, oh, we didn't do any of our slides, right? Anything we were here to talk about. And I was so mad. And then we'd win the work. And I was like, how is this happening? And,
and everybody loved him, I'm sure.
Everybody loved him. And if you ever went to a meeting and he wasn't there, they'd be like, when's Larry coming? And he's not coming today. And you could just see him like, I got Eric. Yeah, exactly. I got this guy, right? He's going to go through these slides with me. And so, it was such a great lesson as a young person in my career of how important it is. Like, you're meeting with human beings. They all have stuff going on in their lives. They want to know that they're cared about at some level. They want to know that you've got them. And if you're going to work together and have this relationship, man, they've got to know and trust you and believe that you care about them, I think. And it's this opportunity to be human. And especially when you're dealing with, it can get so lost when you're dealing with big companies and forgetting that, oh, this person that's a director of whatever within some giant company, they're not human because they're just part of this giant machine. No, they are. Right? It's easier to see, I think, now working with smaller businesses too, that, oh, it's very easy to see the tangible, like these are human beings that are trying to run their business, but it can get lost in the big, but it's still the same, man. If you engage on a human level, you just have this opportunity to do it. And really to spread, as a believer, to spread the kingdom, right? To spread the gospel, to spread the this whole idea that God, Christ said, you have two things to do: worship God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and worship your neighbor, love your neighbor as yourself, right? I'll make it as simple as I can for you, right? Those are the things. And so how do we serve our neighbor? Man, we're human to them, right? We love them. We ask them genuine questions. We look to help. And I think when we do that, we are building the kingdom, and we have opportunities every moment, all throughout the day. If we just kind of open our eyes and take advantage. So,
absolutely.
Yes.
Well said.
Right on. Very cool. So you're building this business up. And so what's your focus with the business now as you're growing it? And talk a bit about kind of where your heart is in relation to your business, your practice, and where you're taking it.
Well, certainly we do just a lot of primarily one-on-one coaching, with the couples. So actually, we go couple to couple. But we just kind of do this year, especially into this year, we do want to start doing some retreats. I think one of the things we notice is, and sometimes us included, we don't have enough fun.
Yeah, people are so serious. And I think as couples, we forget to have fun together. Like when we're dating, we're having all kinds of fun doing things. We get married, have kids, get the business. Fun kind of goes out the window.
Yeah.
And so we'll get some work done. We'll address some of the business issues and the relation dynamics and all that, but we'll just keep it to kind of minimum. Kind of keep it to the mornings and then have the lunch and afternoons and evenings free. But yeah, we want to do some more retreats with these married entrepreneurs and get them out. So we can talk, have a conversation, have a lot of fun, have them reconnect with each other. Because we've spoken at a couple of retreats like this, and the couples say like, this is the first time we've gotten away in like sometimes years. And I'm like, years? I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I was like, how can that be? How can that be possible? That's just terrible. And so we realize that the coaching stuff is great, but really people, they do need to get away too. And so we want to start to do some of those things. And so hopefully we get our first one done later in the year, but we want to kind of gear towards that. Plus I know some people can't make the commitment to do these regular calls, but they will schedule time for a thing like a retreat. And so we're thinking, maybe our business model or the ratio of coaching to retreats might switch a little bit, because I think seems like that might work into schedules even better. Yeah. So they're going to have fun, plus we get some business done, and it's not a long-term ongoing commitment.
Right.
But anyways, so we're going to test that out and see how that goes.
Well, and then you can build relationships with other entrepreneurs because it can be very isolating. Like you think, oh my gosh, I'm out here all by myself on this island. But then when you meet other people that have a business as well, they're like, oh, you're going through that? Oh, I don't feel like it's just me. And then we can encourage each other and do strategies. And so that's a lot of fun.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's so important. It is, being self-employed, being an entrepreneur, run your own business, it can be very isolating, especially if you don't have a brick and mortar. I think if you have a brick and mortar, sometimes your interaction, the non-isolation comes from your customers. But when you're in a, where it's not a brick and mortar, maybe you're doing things virtually or over, it can be very isolating, right? And you think, man, am I the only one experiencing this, right? Am I the only one going through this? And so just having some like a resource, that's why I think masterminds have gotten so popular and so powerful is as more and more people are doing their own thing business-wise, and you've got technology that will support it. It's this great opportunity to put, a group of people together that are like-minded in some way, focused on certain things, and let them benefit from each other. And so, I think that's a great strategy, and certainly building in some travel or making it a retreat, I think is really important. Having participated in a fair number of retreats, it's just amazing how your mind can open and perspective changes when you get out of the daily surroundings of all the distractions and the notifications and all the stuff that can take you away. Even if you're trying to do a mastermind, I'm going to spend an hour, but my phone's pinging and all these other things are intruding, and it really inhibits your ability to I think, grow, that a retreat can address. So very cool.
And there's nothing like a meeting in person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we were made for each other, right? So we definitely are made for that community and being around each other. So I agree. Yeah, in person is the way to go. Awesome. So where can people connect with you? Where can they find your work and reach out if they choose to do so?
Yeah, if you go to marriedentrepreneur.co/authenticity. Authentic. Wait, it's your show. Yeah. Authentic. Authenticity. Yeah. I'm sorry. marriedentrepreneur.co/authenticity. We've created a special landing page for your listeners, and you'll get to see. We have a free download, a free gift there for a better balance guide for marriage and married business owners. There's access to our book Tandem, the Married Entrepreneur's Guide for Greater Work-Life Balance as well out there.
Oh, fantastic. So marriedentrepreneur.co, so not .com, .co.
Correct.
And then /authenticity.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I appreciate you creating that. So we'll definitely put that link in the show notes for our audience to be able to click on. Fantastic. Any other social handles or places to reach you, or best places, or is that a good one?
Yeah, just from there, it'll take you everywhere. But if you want to just follow us on Instagram, Thriving in Tandem, and that's our Instagram handle as well as our Facebook handle.
Thriving in Tandem. Awesome.
And
We will get that linked up.
And we have a podcast called Thriving in Tandem as well.
Oh,
For
fantastic.
our business owners.
We'll get that in the notes as well. That's been a great conversation, Robert. Kay Lee, I so appreciate you taking time to do it, and I'm excited for your upcoming trip to Italy. Love Italy.
Thank you.
And that
We're
will
excited.
be. I bet you are. Yes, indeed. So love the balance that you've created and all the goodness that you're putting back out in the world. So thank you so much for taking time today.
Thanks,
Thank
Eric,
you,
for
Eric.
having us. Yeah.
This was great.
Absolutely. And to our audience, thank you for taking time today to visit with us and listen to the show. If you would write a nice review, give us a rating, share the program with a friend, it helps us reach a broader audience. And next time, friends, we will see you again on Return to Authenticity, and bye for now.